Hi there, welcome to Games Over Qualia. My name is Devon. These videos work in 3 different parts. First, you send me your game and you fill out this form about your intended experience. Second, I'll play the game completely blind and then I explain what I think the game was trying to do. Third, I compare my blind experience with your intended experience and we'll see if they align or if they don't. Today we're talking about a game called Depth Complaint. So when developers submit games to me, they have a questionnaire to fill out. One of the first questions is there anything you wanted me to know before playing the game? And this one actually gave kind of their intent with the game. Usually I save that for the end. And they said, I made Depth Complaint as an experiment in learning RPG Maker as an engine as a prerequisite to committing more strongly to other projects. I left it unfinished on purpose, which is reflected in the narrative of the game, as well as its design. Okay, so this is a weird game. I really like this game, though. I really like it a lot. So it's an RPG Maker game. As you can see, you are controlling a thing that's around. It's not really a person. It's kind of a blob. And you come to random encounters of enemies, but the whole thing is interlaced with a story that's happening kind of in the background. One of the things that I liked so much about it is if you just see the game right now, it looks insane. Like, the game is so abrasive in the aesthetic, right? The aesthetic is very, very in your face. It's very roughly drawn, kind of undesigned on purpose. You know, it's like there's no borders around the areas that you're walking through. A lot of the backgrounds are just abstract weirdness. Sometimes they're just photos of places. For example, there's one where it's just a Family Mart in the background. I am not a person who really enjoys RPGs almost at all. So it's really cool that I was able to enjoy this one. There's a lot of things that I found really interesting about the experience, mainly because I talk a lot about interactive storytelling, and I love the interactive kind of things that are here in this game. Now, when you think interactive things, you know, you're thinking, what do you mean? Do you mean just playing the game, just gameplay? Not exactly. I mean, like, there's a lot of jokes that are in here that are made specifically for the player to interact with in order for it to be funny. So for example, the first thing that you have, it's called a victory certificate. And I thought that was really funny. And it says, congratulations, you've completed the game of Depth Complaint. You can use it at any part of the game. And when you use it, you die. And that's it. So I like opening chests in here. There's one where you find 20 experience points, but then there's a false bottom. And it says, do you want to open the false bottom? And you say, okay. And so you do that, and you found negative 20 experience points in the bottom. There's a chest that when you go to interact with it, it talks to you and says, stop it, right? And it moves away from you, calls you a bitch. I love that kind of stuff. It's so funny. And it feels like poking fun at the idea of RPGs, or at least poking fun at games in general. Anyway, you play as a blob named Adam. It says there in the very beginning, Adam, your job is to kill everything. Classic video games have always had this idea where you have enemies in front of you, and they're adversarial in nature. The first thing that you do is you kill a bunch of scarecrows, but then the next person that you kill is a bird, and that bird is not adversarial. He's trying to talk to you like a human being, and the whole time you're just launching attacks at him and killing him. And then when you do kill him, it's kind of crazy. Other games have this, right, where you have enemies that are not exactly enemies. They're things that you can kill, but they're not enemies. And in this part of the game, it is an enemy that you have to go through, right? You have to kill them in order to continue, but they're not adversarial. For that kind of mechanic, it makes me feel like I'm a bad person, right? Like I'm a murderer. Like that's what it feels like, which is cool. I like that there was an emotion there. You know, it actually got an emotion out of me. It wasn't a super strong one, but it was interesting. Some other things that popped out to me that were pretty interesting. There's this part that I want to call the beginner's guide part, where you come to like a little area where you walk along a piece of sidewalk, and the sidewalk has a bunch of dev notes on it. So there's some very depressing dialogue. So like, for example, right here it says, it's been a while. I've been making this game for what feels like years now. It hasn't been that long as of writing. It's been a year, a singular measly year, and it's wearing on me all the same. Just spinning tires, going in circles, all for what? To have something to show for myself? To justify everything? To make it make sense? It feels very beginner's guide. And what's funny is that at the end of this section right here, you can go to a little light post at the end. And if you've played beginner's guide before, there's a light post at the end of beginner's guide levels. So I don't know if that was meta, right? Like, like it's the developer commenting on developers commenting on their games. Maybe it was just the truth. Maybe that's just what they think. But yeah, that was really interesting. And in fact, this was even more interesting. When I played this section, I had actually had my file explorer open behind this game just out of pure happenstance. And when I reached the light post at the end there was a little text file that opened up in my file explorer. It said lightpost.txt. I was like, oh, wow, that's interesting. And if you open that up, it actually has a bunch of different types of games that I imagine were inspirations. I'm not exactly sure. Maybe they're just a list of random games, because some of them aren't games. You have like the beginner's guide is in there, but you also have just the word off. And then you also have the book, House of Leaves. There's also other things that I don't know about in there, but there's several other games that are, narrative in nature. So I thought that was interesting. So there's a part in this game where you come to this new construction area, and the area is just 4 houses, or what looks like Pokemon houses. I wonder if they use like the Pokemon assets itself from the Game Boy game. You go to read the signs and it says under construction, and it says that for all the houses except for one where there's a shop. And so you go inside, you have to talk to the dog. So you talk to the dog, and then the dog wants to fight you. When I beat the dog, I exited the shop, and then I went to go back in the shop, and I couldn't go back in the shop. And I was like, oh, that's interesting. And the sign now says under construction. So now you're just trapped in this area. There's nowhere to go. And the game pauses. The developer literally has a mouse come in, build a new path, and then lets you play again. It reminds me of a game that I talked about before called Development Hell. If you've not seen that, that's a funny one. There's this really cool part next that I found really, really interesting. This is so cool to think about. When you're playing this game, obviously everything is of its own kind of chaotic nature, right? There's a lot of weird characters, there's weird art assets, there's weird everything. And then you come into this area that's just basically a maze. You've never had a maze before, right? You've had just walkways. Now it's an actual maze. And there's a maze that's just made of green grass, and there's trees everywhere. It looks very generic, and it's really funny because you come over to this area and you see a treasure chest that again does not match the rest of the game. This whole area looks very different, and so you open that treasure chest, and the funniest thing happens. It says you got a potion, and I thought that was so funny. And what's so interesting about this is that it's not funny right by itself. But to experience this whole game as it is, and you come to this completely normal section, very generic section, and you open up a generic treasure box, and you're trying to think, oh, what's going to happen now? Is it going to be, 2 false bottoms? Am I going to get fresh air, when I open this? Is it just going to explode? Is it going to be a new character? And you open it, and it says potion. And you're like, what? That took me so off guard, and it was so funny to me. And then even more funny is that when you're walking through the maze, then you have more random encounters with enemies, but now all these enemies are very generic enemies. They're just mage or warrior or rogue, and you're just regular battles, except with, generic characters. I thought that was hilarious. That was just so interesting to me. A very, very meta take on a game, because you're building up this kind of contrast with the player, and I thought that was just so interesting in the very end to just completely switch it on them. Very odd. So then if you get to the very end, you come to a fishing area. You go down from there, and then that's the end of the game. And what happens is this character walks out, who I guess is supposed to be the developer, and he himself says this is so meta. And then he says, this is the reason why I made the game, was because I was trying to, build with RPG Maker. And he says, thanks for playing the game, and then the game just quits. And I loved that. I just thought that was so interesting. So I really liked this game quite a lot, in a way that I think most people don't really play games for. And for me, I really like games like this because they're artistic, because they're very authentic. And I'm someone who very much likes authenticity in a person's work. If it feels inauthentic, then I don't really like it. And so when I feel a lot of personality and a lot of honesty coming from something, it feels really raw and very cool. I was very much a fan of games like The Beginner's Guide or Depression Quest, very much personalized for the person who made the game, because it feels like what I'm doing is I'm getting to step inside the brain of someone else, right? I get to see how they think, and I get to see like how they feel, and I really like that. That's just so interesting to me. That kind of stuff feels just so much more genuine than like your regular game that has, it's just a game about a character, right? And while those are fine, I have no qualms with that. These other ones feel a lot more honest to me. So this feels so interesting to me. Another thing about this game was the title, Depth Complaint. I wonder if it's supposed to be in itself meta also, where because there's so much weird messaging in this game. For example, the level where there's these bridges that are in between pictures of dogs, and each of these bridges have sentences on them, and they're very cryptic, and the whole thing feels like it's trying to save something, but it never really arrives anywhere. So I'm wondering if that is depth, if that's fake depth. I'm wondering if the title is like commenting on that people complain about the depth of this game, or complain that there's not enough depth, or complain about the depth in some way. And so this whole game in itself is a depth complaint, perhaps, or maybe the developer himself is complaining about depth in other games by using this game to do so. Maybe I'm reading too much into it. Maybe it's not any of that. Also, after playing this game again, I just discovered after doing the cave puzzle, which in here takes a lot of steps in order to do, but I figured it out. So I'm wondering, is that also part of the depth? Because there's a lot of layers to do that puzzle. I thought that was really interesting. So yeah, I guess if I had to imagine what the developer was trying to do with this game, I think what they're trying to do is create a meta type of experience for the player. They basically wanted to create something that was like Beginner's Guide, or like all those other games and experiences that they showed in that Lighthouse text file. I'm wondering if they're trying to create something like that. So I'm excited to read this dev's responses. So let's do that right now. Question 1 was, what were you hoping the player would feel while playing your game? This person answered, the number one thing I'm going for is a sense that the game isn't finished and that there's something just off about it. Deliberate lack of balance, somewhat player-hostile design, and disorienting visuals, text, and sound, blurring the lines between placeholder assets and intention. I wanted it to feel like the player was exploring something released midway through development. Yeah, wow, that's definitely what I felt. My second question was, why did you choose this experience? This developer answered, I really enjoy working with collage, whether visual or sound. I wanted to just make something to learn the ropes of the engine and game dev in general, and decided to make that intention part of the game itself. Having it unfinished became a deliberate choice very early in development, and meant I could simply release it once I felt like I had learned enough. My third question was, were there specific moments, mechanics, or ideas that you built around that emotional goal? Their answer was, I think the inclusion of references to outside material, the transparent use of almost entirely square tiles that didn't directly represent any real objects, and the use of physical sketches for the battle sprites contribute to the themes of the game. If I could change anything, I would have not used any of the default RPG Maker assets until later in the game. So yes, okay, so this is far more pragmatic than I would have imagined. So it seems like the point of the whole thing, the intent behind this game, was to have created something. This is a really cool idea, actually, to have created something that's deliberately unfinished so that you can just release it whenever you're done. And I really like this idea. This is, I forgot, there's a term for this. I feel like there's got to be a term for this. I really like that type of design where you are trying to do something for the purpose of its release state. So this developer made a game that is unfinished so that they could release it in an unfinished state. I like that idea because it feels like a conceptual piece almost, for example, that picture of a pipe, that famous painting of a pipe that says, this is not a pipe, that kind of stuff. I really like that kind of stuff because it's conceptual, right? It's that kind of thing where you are putting an idea into the form of art, of whatever it is that you're creating that idea for, and creating a game that is unfinished for the purpose of it being unfinished, or for the story of, revolving around the unfinished state of the game. That's a very smart way of contextualizing the way in which you've made the game. I think that's really cool. That feels very Davey Rendon, right? the guy who made Beginner's Guide and Stanley Parable. Those kinds of games, they're self-referential, and they might have irony in them because that's just the way that these kinds of games are usually made. But a lot of times they are built for the purpose of the way that they are. And I know that sounds weird and self-referential because it is. So yeah, consider me a fan. I really like this a lot. I thought this was a lot of fun. Thank you so much for submitting the game. This was a really cool journey to go through, and I really look forward to any more stuff that you're doing. $0 gift card. These videos are supported by Patreon members. I really appreciate you guys. These are them that you can join the Patreon down below if you so desire. We have a podcast in that Patreon called GOQ Talk. There's also a Discord if you want to talk to other developers or have your game play tested or play test yourself. And I really appreciate all of you being here. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll talk to you guys later. Peace.